question here from Elijah Odhiambo. I don't know which one of you will take it, or maybe 2 or 3 of you can comment on it. What are the specific challenges with cross-border data? We have multinationals operating across our borders. How are they managing? Who would like to take that question?
Okay, so I'll take it because
Thelma,
that was part of the presentation. Okay, fake challenges, and I'll give it to you in terms of numbers. Out of the 29 countries in Africa that has data protection laws, 48% of them do not allow cross-border data, meaning that they will not allow you to take information that they deem sensitive across their borders. Another 48 would allow you, but you'd have to go through a long, rigorous bureaucratic process. Then the rest of the 2 or 4%, I mean, they don't really mind. They allow. Now, I hear you on the fact that we have multinationals that operate across borders. But if you ask these multinationals, there are some data that they are able to carry across and some that they are not able to carry across. However, we have other international organizations like the GAFAM and the rest who are able to carry data across our borders because they are not bound by the laws, our local data protection laws. They are bound by the laws in the countries in which they registered. And so these are the specific challenges. And again, just to reiterate the point I was making, these challenges are going to follow us into the free trade agreement if we do not resolve it. Now that we are reopening borders, trying to see how we can bring back economy, if we don't work on cross-border data flows, there will be challenges. Because if I'm traveling from Kigali to, I don't know, Morocco, and there's an easy way of ensuring that my data is passed, my COVID status is passed very responsibly between the two governments. It makes it easier. Otherwise, we leave the room open, or we leave loopholes for people to be able to manipulate documents, like the yellow card that we had. People were manipulating it. But if we agree to use digital means and agree to share data responsibly between governments, then that is also a way of ensuring we control the spread of this COVID. That's another way we make sure that we come out successfully with the free trade agreement. So that's my answer to that question.
I'd like to make a quick comment, if you can allow me.
Yes, Caroline, go ahead.
On this, thank you so much. Just to add on what Thelma has discussed, the key, in my view, and one of the key issues that businesses have in terms of cross-border flows is the fact that we in the region don't have like what we call like a harmonized approach. Different countries have their different, regulations and policies in place with regards to data and just how they want to manage their data across the different borders. So and of course having this issue organizations in terms of compliance, because you have to comply to the different data privacy laws in the different countries, and of course this creates a high operational cost for these organizations in terms of the cost that comes with it. So it puts us at a disadvantage beyond, declines, and maybe one of the ways we can look at this is just looking at how to have a more harmonized approach in terms of some of these enabling instruments that come in place, because we've just discussed that the digital space is not a respecter of borders. As much as we have different countries with their own sovereignty, and we respect that, but the digital space is not a respecter of borders. So if you're looking to accelerate digital economic growth in the region, these are some of the things we need to start looking at. How do we harmonize some of these policies so that we make sure that we are able to have a single approach, and that would help us, or rather that will create a win for us in a much faster rate. Thank you.
Yes, I can comment, but my comment will be limited because really in the Kenyan situation, we only recently got a registration on data protection. this is the Data Protection Act of 2019, which itself was challenged in courts. It took a while before it could be implemented. It couldn't be implemented. It's only now that the implementation is taking effect. But then, as a regulator, the CA is indeed not the regulator on data issues. There is a data commission, an office that has been established to oversee the data matters. So indeed, perhaps when we have the next discussion on this topic, perhaps the one of data protection might be one that deserves a session of its own for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Adam, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good. I don't think there's too much more to add. I think Thelma added it quite nicely that yes, multinationals, there's very strict regulations about which data you can and can't take. You put on the internet, for example, hosting it, leave us hosting it, and so on. It is becoming quite complicated, and we actually would really like to be more standardization in approaches to data protection as well as other things. You know, GDPR was fantastic, not just because it seems to be a pretty good, not perfect regulation, but because it's been implemented by 20-something European Union nations. And now many other countries around the world are using it as their base. So adapting a little bit based on that. And I think Kenya's also based their regulation quite significantly and heavily in one too. And that's really helpful and really important. If we want to have cross-border flows of information, of money, or anything else, we need to have some kind of commonalities and as much standardization as we can. I think that's a very important aspect, and that's why I think this regulators collaborate very closely and work together as much as they can, trying to work out how you adapt to local context where need be, but how to keep as much in common as possible. And I think that is really helpful, especially for the smaller companies. You know, like I mentioned, if the Africa Free Trade Area should be there to help African small companies help trade as much as possible across Africa. Multinationals don't have a big problem, but it's the smaller companies that need to understand and balance very complicated regulations, and for them, time is money, and that's really, really important. And I think I really hope it can be implemented fast, and implemented in reality, not just implemented in name only, because that I think it will really make a really big difference.
Okay, one last question for you, Caroline. It's from Alois. I believe the best way to bridge the digital skills gap is to motivate the people first by creating awareness on the available tech and benefits attendant, and then to help motivate them to access and use it. Can GSMA come up with a program to promote this?
Thank you so much for that. And I could not agree more. It's completely in line with what I just discussed. So creating relevant content and creating relevance, really. And that is wholly the spirit behind what we call the Innovation Fund, where we normally fund different innovations that are in line with this. Perhaps I can share a bit more information, some links that Alois can refer to in terms of our Innovation Fund project that we already have in place that is looking at funding innovators in this particular space.
Okay, and then one last one from Alois to all the speakers. Please just give us maybe 10 more minutes. So Edward, can I start with you? So Alois says, I think the elephant in the room regarding this topic is how to interplay governance and standards with clear mandate on the bodies charged with governance. Can all speakers comment on his statement, please?
Yes, I'll have a take on that. Yes, indeed, this what Adam spoke to at length is the need for standards. And as a regulator, then we come in to monitor and ensure that those I would start saying that we would have then licensees, ensuring that the licensees who follow the standards that have laid down. Now, the failure to have standards would give us a problem where anyone comes up with their own innovation. Possibly you may find that that innovation has an interference on the other systems. I would possibly give an example of one of the areas we regulate in the broadcasting aspects. Let's say in terms of radio broadcasting, for example, the FM broadcasting. Now, the problem of not having standards wouldn't be that you could come in with your own system, and as much as you'll be able to broadcast, then what you are doing is interfering with all the other FM stations within a certain area, so that if the standards then are not adhered to, you would actually would have a total confusion, and that confusion is what we'll be trying to avoid, because it comes up with various other aspects other than interfering with the other licensees. We are also not able to confirm that indeed the system you have, if it is a system, then it's not harmful, maybe to the environment, to other users, so that those standards now come in for the purposes of health benefits and various other aspects. And that is how the regulators come in to ensure that then we all are within talking terms in these are the standards, this is what is expected of you. Now, if you fail, then we'll tell you now this is outside what your license conditions say, or then would ask you to get within the agreed standards. Now, the compliance on that really is upon the licensee to ensure that they comply with the laws, because the laws then govern what is expected of them. And if they fail, we try to speak with them, they fail to comply, we will do the monitoring, and once we confirm that indeed this is outside what is expected of them, eventually we do the enforcement. But enforcement is as a last resort. As a regulator, what we do is speak with the licensees so that we collaborate in terms of ensuring that the laws and regulations are followed, because we believe in regulations being an enabler as opposed to being really an enforcement for the sake of enforcement. That's my take on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Edward. Thelma?
Yes, I'd like to be a little bit controversial to say that it's rather the elephant in the room is actually inability to enforce. I think it's a lack of enforcement. It's not standards. The standards exist, but we do not enforce it. And I'll give you a typical example. Again, in the area of data protection, data privacy, cybersecurity. Africa had our own Malabo Convention. That is a sort of documentation that would help us in terms of regulation for data protection. We had it since 2014, but it wasn't enforced. That this regulation was there before GDPR, but you see the difference between the effectiveness of GDPR and this document is because the people who wrote GDPR saw it to completion. They saw it in terms of enforcement. They enforced it. GDPR is so effective, even to me here in Africa. You know, if I deal with an European in the wrong way, GDPR applies to me. So I think that the elephant in the room is enforcement. We have the standards. We need to be bold to be able to enforce whatever we have written in the standards. So that is my take on what he said.
I think I will also make then my final comment. I fully agree with everyone on before. You know, one of the reasons I was highlighting the standards and how it's particularly interesting to Huawei is, of course, that as everyone will be well aware of, in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of debate and discussion about us, and we believe that technology has standards, and if we or anybody else from any other country can meet those standards, are proven to meet those standards, are conform, then that's what really matters, and that predictability is what's critical to investment and to trade and to business, and in a sense to innovation. Why would you innovate and meet certain standards or meet any regulations, and then people change the bar, so to speak? So that's something that's specifically relevant to us, as we believe very strongly technology is something that's there. It's not art where you can argue if it's good or bad. It's something you meet a standard or you don't meet a standard that you can test and so on. So I just want to kind of emphasize that. I think it's a very important point. And I think that's also very important for everyone in Africa and in Kenya as well to be aware of, and having that ability to assess, are you meeting standards or not? So as much, it's not only the ability, it's also the capacity, right, to enforce standards and to check products in a reasonable way. That's why I think people get approvals for 6 months or for a year or 2 years and so on, to avoid having to check every single product that comes out of every factory on every ship, for example. So it's not as simple as it seems. It is quite a complicated topic, but it is very important, and it's worth us, I think, exploiting. How do you get that balance between, enforcing standards, allowing some flexibility, allowing some innovation, not burdening people too much with too many compliance requirements all the time. So I think that maybe is my wrap up, trying to bring it back to the original topic, as we try to make that balance. But we do need to be careful. And on the side of caution, especially from a cybersecurity perspective, while still trying to foster innovation as much as possible, especially amongst the startups of this society, of this world as well. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you to all our speakers. Unfortunately, Caroline has lost her volume again. I was just about to say her voice, her volume. But at least we managed to get the gist of her presentation. I have asked her to share her presentation because I can see some of you are asking for it. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you to our speakers for your great preparation. I think we have learned quite a bit. It is pretty clear that this is not a topic that we can finish in 1.5 hours. We may need to have a part 2 of this. Let's see what the feedback is like from the attendees, and then we can see how to reschedule, or rather schedule a part 2 of this same discussion, and then see how much of it we can have a discussion around. I'd like to thank you all for your patience. I'd like to thank you all for your engagement, and I look forward to engaging with each and every one of you in our next webinar. Please fill out our feedback forms and take care of yourselves. Keep safe. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye.